Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us here for the latest in our MaxLite webinar series, this one on California compliance and the various lighting regulations in that state. Good afternoon to my East Coast people, which are on my side. I'm here based in Washington, D.C., and good morning still to our friends on the West Coast, which I suspect maybe many of you due to our topic here today. However, as you guys know, what's happening in California kind of affects everyone who sells lighting products in the state. In the past, I've done training on Title24, which had some major changes back in 2017, and then Title 20, which had a big change this year. And now, since it's around mid-year, I thought it's about time to have a refresher on both of the programs. So this is the first time I'm actually combining the two into one webinar, which is a bit challenging, but I think it'll be good for us to see what's been happening with both programs. Each time I put together one of these, even though I've been pretty close to it myself, I learned something new that I didn't quite know before. So even if you have seen one of my training sessions before, I think and hope you will learn something new today. And those of you who are new to this world of California and compliance, hopefully I can help you to understand what can sometimes be a very complicated program. So let's go. My name is Primous. I will be your host today as we go through these topics of California lighting compliance. The topics to be covered today include an overview of all the programs, an understanding of Title 20. We'll go through Title 24 and JA8 as it relates to Title 24. The differences in the two programs, finding compliant products, and then I'll have a Q&A at the end. I've structured this program, this webinar, such that I will be answering hopefully most of your questions as I go along, but I'll certainly have time to answer questions at the end, or you can contact me, of course, later. The link to the presentation material, including the recording, will be made available to all of the participants soon after the webinar, so you will get that information. Okay, now this very first slide hopefully gives you a snapshot of all we're going to talk about here today. So this is California lighting compliance in a nutshell, the two major components of it. Title 20 regulates appliances in the state. Title 20 is very clearly defined as far as the scope of what the state considers to be appliances. It's applicable to individual products. This includes some lamps, or I'll be talking about, when I say lamps, I'm talking about bulbs here in this case for most of this presentation, and portable luminaires and some other lighting components. Title 20 is mandatory for all of the appliances that are regulated by the state and covered under the scope. These products must be registered with the state in order to be legally sold in the state of California, and you can have fines applied to a lot of people in the chain if you are non-compliant, and I'll talk more about that. So that is Title 20. Title 24, on the other hand, is the building code. Those are standards for all new construction in the state of California, so it's applicable to buildings, not individual products. It's mandatory only for new construction and remodels, so anything where you're going to have to get a permit. It is enforced by the inspectors and has differing requirements for non-residential versus residential. There's no individual luminaire requirements for non-residential. For residential, there are some individual luminaire requirements, and I'll get into what those consist of. Okay, let's look at Title 20 in a little bit of detail. So what is Title 20? Again, it's the appliance efficiency regulations. It includes, in the written regulations themselves, they have the federal standards adopted verbatim for all the products that are covered under federal requirements. Those are the Department of Energy, the DOE requirements. And it also includes their additional state requirements on top of that. So they copied everything in there. There's a link here. Again, you'll get this presentation where you can find the actual regulations if you want to see them. But they actually have all of the federal requirements in there as well. There's also, for far as Title 20 is concerned, the manufacturers must certify regulated products to the California Energy Commission prior to being sold or offered for sale in the state of California. So the manufacturers of the products that are covered have to certify those products to the state. Failure to certify those products can result in fines of up to $2,500 per non-compliant item. Here is a list of lighting products that are regulated under Title 20. The left side shows products that are both federally and California regulated, and you can see it includes a bunch of things: ballasts, torchieres, metal halide lamp fixtures, all kinds of products that include lighting. On the right side these are products that are only regulated by the state of California. What's important to note is for any manufacturer of these products, anybody using these products, it's important to note that all products in both lists must be registered and certified in the California Energy Commission database, even if it's only federally regulated. So taking a look at what lamps or bulbs that are regulated under Title 20. There are three major categories of lamp types that are regulated by the state right now. That includes, first, general service lamps. General service lamps is kind of where it catches all of the products that are normally used for general lighting, and that catches incandescent in this bucket, compact fluorescents, LEDs, any products with a medium screw base and intended for general service applications. It's important to note that these are only medium screw base products, and only those lamps that have an output between 310 lumens and 2600 lumens. If it's less than 310 lumens, they consider it more like a decorative product. More than 2600, it's more of a commercial type product. These are your general service, your more common omni-type medium base lamps. That includes incandescent, CFL, LED, and any technology of lamp. It does not include incandescent reflector lamps or fluorescent tubes. The second category of product is the state-regulated LED lamps. Now, this is the only category that has a specific technology associated with it, but the LED lamps that have these specific bases, only E12, E17, E26, and GU24 bases are considered in this state-regulated LED lamp regulation. It also includes any downlight retrofits that have these same bases that I just explained. Only products with an output less than 2600, less than or equal to 2600 lumens, and the CCT has to be between 2200 and 7000 K. State-regulated small diameter directional lamps, the third category, or SDDLs. These products are directional lamps with a diameter of less than or equal to 2.25 inches in diameter. The pin base or E26 base, any of these types of voltages, 12, 24, 120 of any technology. And it only includes lamps that have an output of less than or equal to 850 lumens or wattage less than or equal to 75 watts and a rated life of greater than 300 hours. These are your three major categories of lamps that are regulated by the state of California. Now let's take a closer look at the general service lamp regulations under Title 20. The general service lamp scope only includes lamps with medium screw base sockets, and it includes incandescent, CFL, LED, and OLED technology. Those are basically all technologies for general service applications, and operated at 110 to 130 volts. Only includes lamps, as I mentioned, with between 310 and 2600 lumens. Does not include the products I talked about earlier. This is medium screw base lamps only. The requirements for these types of products, they have to be at least 45 lumens per watt. So you hear a little bit about incandescent lamps are banned in the state of California. This is kind of what they're talking about here, because it's very difficult to meet with an incandescent type of a lamp this regulation. This is the general service lamp regulation that catches all of those types of products. This means most medium screw base incandescent lamps would need to be 45 lumens per watt to be sold in the state of California. Most incandescent lamps are by far less than that, usually around 10 to 15 lumens per watt. This became effective January 1 of 2018, so this year. This is when these requirements became in effect for general service lamps. For 45 lumens per watt, 1,000 hours, and the minimum CRI of 80 for most products and 75 for modified spectrum special type of lamps. There are a number of products exempted from this general service lamp regulations. I talked about the medium base is only included. This kind of just shows you that there are lots of other lamp types that are not included in this general service lamp regulation. Specialized lamps that are used for bug lights, for rough service, all of these types of products here, and mainly we're talking about incandescent in this case, but it's any technology. All of these specialized lamps are not included in these regulations. So just to clarify and make it clear that these products are exempt, this is the list of types of products that are exempted. Ceiling fan light kits I mentioned here are not required to be there because there are some federal requirements for ceiling fan light kits I'll get to in a second that make them exempt from Title 20 regulations. Note that some of these lamps are covered under one of these other two types of categories I'll talk about in a second. And so if they're LED, they may be covered in the next one of the next two categories. Okay, now let's look at the LED lamp regulations under Title 20. The state-regulated LED lamp scope includes only these types of bases: E12, that is a candelabra base; E17, that's intermediate base; E26, that's medium base; and the JA8 base. Only those bases are covered in state-regulated LED lamps. It also includes any downlight retrofits with those same bases. Only products that have an output of less than or equal to 2,600 lumens and capable of producing white light. And so the white light range is between 2200K to 7000K, and this DUV shown here, this is basically what is considered to be white light emitting product in the state. The specific regulations for those types of products, they have to be at least a CRI of 82. Now, it's just not a CRI of 82, but it also has to have an R1 through R8 value of greater than or equal to 72. So you may hear these products only have to have a CRI of 82. That's not exactly correct. They have to have that plus a R1 through R8 value of greater than or equal to 72. What that means is they're specifying that you have to have a certain amount of each individual color represented, and CRI is representative of a number of different individual colors. All those colors have to be, the R1 through R8 colors have to be at least 72. You are able to have an LED chip that has 82 without having those values at 72. So what that means is products that have that are designed to meet these specific regulations will probably meet using a 90 CRI chip. It's not very common to find an 80 CRI chip, and it's not common to find anything in between 80 and 90. And so 90 CRI would be what most manufacturers of these types of lamps use to comply with these codes. It has to have also a power factor of 0.7, a rated life of at least 10,000 hours, minimum efficacy and compliance score per what's shown in this chart here. Now, this is where it gets into Tier 1 and Tier 2. Currently, we're under the Tier 1 specifications. This particular regulation, only for the state-regulated LED lamp, ratchets up in 2019. And so in 2019, the efficacy minimum goes up a little bit higher, and the compliance score goes up a little bit higher. What this compliance score is actually a trade-off if you want to have a higher CRI product to get to what the product should be. And so the compliance score is actually your CRI times 2.3 plus your efficacy, and you have to have at least a minimum of 282 today. That jumps up to 297, in addition to having your minimum efficacy number shown. Tier 2 regulations, again, don't kick in until July 1 of 2019. That is by manufacturer date code. And so any products manufactured on or after that date that are state-regulated LED lamps will need to meet the Tier 2 specifications. By the way, you can go into the California Energy Commission database of products, which I'll show you how to get to that in a second, and you can see today what tier each of these products are already certified to. Certainly contact MaxLite or your manufacturer to find out as well. Okay, let's look at the next product category. We're looking at directional lamp regulations. The only directional lamps that are regulated today are small diameter directional lamps. So state-regulated small diameter directional lamps are defined as lamps with a diameter of less than or equal to 2.25 inches in diameter. They have an ANSI pin base or an E26 base. It only includes small diameter directional lamps with output of less than or equal to 850 lumens or wattage less than or equal to 75 and a rated life of greater than 300 hours. Lamps that meet this definition are only covered under this particular part of the regulation. So I talked about general service and state-regulated LEDs. This supersedes that, so if it's defined, as I just talked about, in directional lamps, it just needs to meet what's shown here. Examples of a small diameter directional lamp would include MR16s, GU10s, and any of your small PAR and MR type lamps. Okay, so what are the regulations for these directionally small diameter directional lamps? So products that are manufactured starting in the beginning of this year, they have to have at least 25,000 hours minimum rated life, a minimum efficacy of at least 80 lumens per watt, or they can have 70 lumens per watt if the CRI is a bit higher. So this is where you see that compliance score again. If the compliance score is at least 165, you're allowed to have a little bit lower efficacy number. Compliance score in this case is actually just the efficacy plus the CRI. This particular requirement actually eliminates most incandescent halogen small diameter directional lamps. So your MR16s, MR11, GU10s, all of those that have been sold in the state that were halogen and those types of technologies, those will not be able to be used due to this. And so as you saw in the general service where that's eliminating a lot of incandescent lamps being sold in the state, this is going to eliminate a lot of MR16 halogen type lamps used in the state. Okay, and another product that's regulated under Title 20 is a portable luminaire. This is one of the few luminaires, actually the only real luminaire that I'll talk about that's regulated under Title 20. Title 20 regulates appliances. They consider portable luminaires appliances in this case, and the requirements have been in place actually since 2010 for this particular category of product. But just to recap, what these need to have at least a fluorescent socket. They can do one of these requirements. They have to have a dedicated fluorescent socket connected to a electronic ballast in the luminaire. It could have a GU24 socket as long as it's not being used in incandescent. It could be a integrated luminaire with a light engine that meets these requirements. And number 4 here shows it could be equipped with a screw-based socket and have a lamp in the box. So this is what's kind of called a lamp in the box solution. This is what most portable luminaire manufacturers use to comply. Or it could be equipped with a single-ended non-screw-based halogen lamp socket, dimmer controls, and be rated for max 100 watts. By and large, number 4 is the way most people comply with the portable luminaire requirement. That's the lamp in box or bulb in box approach. The big change here is that if you do include one of those bulbs in the box, then you have to make sure that it meets the latest requirements that I talked about in all the previous slides. There are some certain exceptions for certain portable luminaires that are shown here, but most portable luminaires would need to meet these requirements. Okay, there are labeling requirements for Title 20. It's applicable to all the products I talked about that are regulated in the scope. You have to show the manufacturer's name, the brand name or trademark, the model number, a date of manufacturer. You can put this on the packaging or on the units or on the packaging of the whole group of units. And so it really doesn't matter how you show this, but this is a requirement for all products that you have some kind of information that shows all of this information, including the date of manufacturer, which is the most important thing because, as I mentioned, enforcement of Title 20 is per the manufacturing date code. So the manufacturing date codes are going to be very critical for the commission and anybody who's out there checking products to make sure that they comply. Okay, a couple of frequently asked questions about Title 20. These are a couple of important notes to take into consideration. One, ceiling fan light kits. I kind of briefly touched on this earlier, but since federal requirements are so stringent for ceiling fan light kits, the state of California has largely backed off of any requirements for those ceiling fan light kits that package lamps in the box with those. So lamps packaged with ceiling fan light kits do not need to meet any of these requirements. That's something that many people don't realize, but because of the federal requirements, California does not require any lamps packaged with ceiling fan light kits to have to meet all of these requirements. Now, ceiling fan light kits must still be certified to the state to tell the state how they're what they're doing and how they're certified federally, but they don't have to meet Title 20. Ceiling fan light kits with screw base, however, will still need to meet the state-certified JA8 for Title 24. I'm going to talk about in a minute, but as far as Title 20 is concerned, they don't have to meet. Special applications of LED lamps. The question comes up quite a bit that I have a special application that it's a specialized use of certain type of LED lamps. It really doesn't matter. I talked about the definition and how the scope covers certain base types. If it's covered in a definition and base types as far as the lamp was defined in the Title 20 regulations, it has to meet. So there's no provisions for specialized applications. It has to meet based on those definitions that I talked about earlier, and that's usually by base type. LED light engine and retrofit kits. Light engine and retrofit kits are not products that include standardized bases. They don't have screw bases like I showed, E12 or E17, which I meant to put here, and E26 and GU24. These products don't meet any of those don't meet any of those standards that define a lamp, and so they do not have to meet these Title 20 requirements. They are not regulated by the state. Any product that's not regulated by the state doesn't have to meet any of these particular standards. It's unregulated, so you basically can do whatever you want to with those types of products. They're not regulated by the state. Light engines and retrofit kits are not covered by these regulations, and so they don't have any particular requirements. There's a link here that has some more FAQs, and you can go to those once you receive this webinar. I think I have a couple more here. So another couple FAQs. Portable luminaires. So with the exception of portable luminaires, most luminaires are not regulated by Title 20. This is primarily for appliances, bulbs, and other lighting components. Has some luminaires, some portable luminaires, but most luminaires aren't regulated by Title 20. They'll get into the next one I'll talk about in a second. A luminaire that's connected to a branch circuit with a cord and plug, that's a portable luminaire, and that's regulated by Title 20. Color tunable LED lamps. Now, color tunable LED lamps, you can change colors to. Now, these products are required to meet Title 20 if they're capable of producing white light. I talked about that white light for the state is considered to having a DUV between 0.012 and negative and positive 0.012, and a CCT between 2200K and 7000K. It has to meet Title 20 for the mode where it operates in that white light zone. And so the mode of operation where it does produce white light, it does need to meet these requirements. Outside of that range, it doesn't matter, but inside of the white light range, it needs to meet these requirements. So it has to be tested and operated within that range. Okay, Title 20 enforcement. The enforcement is by the California Energy Commission. They do periodic testing and verification for these products. As I mentioned, it is illegal to sell or offer for sale in the state any regulated product that's not certified to the state. That includes online retailers, anybody shipping product into zip codes in the state of California. It includes all products that are shipping into the state. Any person in the chain, retailers, manufacturers, contractors, importers, distributors, it is written into their regulations that any of those people in the chain can be subject to civil penalties for each product, each unit sold or offered for sale. It's very likely the point of retail person will be sought after first, but anybody in the chain can actually be subject to civil penalties. Violations under Title 20, if you don't meet the standards, you don't mark correctly, as I talked about marking, providing false information, these are some of the violations. The penalties can be very high, up to $2,500 per each violation. That's just a maximum. They probably wouldn't go to there. The state of California really wants people to comply, but these are the civil penalty maximums that can be assessed. Okay, so that's Title 20. Let's go into the Title 24. Now, Title 24, as I mentioned, it's not appliance or product code. This is a new construction building code. It's applicable to all residential and non-residential buildings that are permitted, and we'll go into that now. Again, looking at Title 20 versus Title 24. Title 20, appliance regulation, covers the lamps I talked about, the portable luminaires I talked about. It's mandatory for all state-regulated products that are covered under that scope. Fines can be assessed from the California Energy Commission. Title 24, on the other hand, it's a building code, and it's required to be met for any new or remodel construction, certain alterations, any place where building permits are needed. Title 24 is not applicable to individual products. It's achieved through certifying an overall building. Products cannot be certified as Title 24 compliant. You'll get that quite a bit. There's no really such thing as a Title 24 compliant product. It's a building code. It's like saying an ASHRAE compliant product. Certain products can help you achieve the Title 24 building code, but they're not Title 24 products. When it comes to non-residential applications, there's a myriad of ways you can achieve Title 24, and usually it's through controls and applications and calculation methods. There's no individual luminaire certifications needed. As far as residential with Title 24, it does require all luminaires to be high efficacy, and high efficacy means you have to have certain certifications. And so we'll get into that in a minute, but note that you can use a number of different products. For non-residential, residential, you have to use a certain type of product. Regulated products that are covered under the scope of Title must also be Title 20 certified in all Title 24 construction. So Title 20 is your catch-all, and it covers all products used anywhere in the state. If it's Title 20 regulated, then it has to be used as a regulated product in any project in the state. Okay, looking closer at what is California Title 24. Again, it's the building energy efficiency standards required to be met for permanent buildings. Lighting installs in newly constructed buildings, additions, and alterations must all meet the applicable requirements, and it's verified by building inspectors. Title 24 is updated every 3 years by the California Energy Commission. We're currently on the 2016 cycle, which takes effect the following year in 2017. Title 24 2019 is currently under development. It's wrapping up now. Trust me, you don't want to know about that just yet. I'm sure the next series of webinars I'll be doing will be on Title 24 2019. But currently we're on 2016, and that became effective beginning of last year. Okay, this is something I haven't really done before on one of these particular webinars, looking at the residential versus the non-residential requirements. This question comes up quite a bit because Title 24 is very complicated, and a lot of people will talk about residential versus non-residential, not knowing the different aspects of each. Non-residential is very different. So non-residential requirements include certain mandatory measures. So usually it's have to have certain areas controlled. It has multi-level lighting requirements. Dimming is based on square footage in some cases. Some areas have to have daylight lighting controls. They include certain approaches you can do with some projects. You can have a prescriptive approach based on lighting power density. You can do a performance approach where you do calculations and combine measures based on your time-dependent valuation. Non-residential requirements, they focus very heavily on controls. And since they do, many builders use controllable luminaires in order to meet those requirements. They can use any type of controllable luminaires. It doesn't have to be a certain certified luminaires I talked about before, because there's no certification for Title 24. You can use a number of different controllable luminaires to meet your non-residential requirements. There's not any specific approach. You can do it many different ways. Now, on the residential requirement side, each individual luminaire has to be a certain type of product. So each individual product has to be high efficacy. And high efficacy is defined very specifically by the state for residential applications. All the luminaires must include a compliant light source at the time of inspection, and the light sources don't necessarily need to be in the box, but they have to have the light source at the time of inspection. The light sources must be certified and registered to the state on the residential side. Many residential applications comply using JA8, and I'll talk a lot about JA8 here in a second. But the big thing to understand from this is residential requirements are product specific. Non-residential requirements are a whole building approach. So I'm going to take a quick look here too at the non-residential before I go into the residential. So the non-residential requirements again vary by space. There's requirements for office spaces, there are requirements for hallway spaces, for corridors. Each one has a different requirement, and they include many times dimming, daylighting control, aux sensors, emergency backup. On the outdoor side, there's sometimes requirements for glare control and area and shut off and daylighting, specific lighting power density. But again, the big thing to note here is that you can do it many different ways. Some people may use a logo such as we show here. We use this on some of our products that show that we have some types of products that have these controls or backups or sensors in them that can help you get a building Title 24 compliant, and that means it supports Title 24 compliance. Again, it's not a Title 24 compliant product. We're just showing that we have some products that can help you achieve Title 24 for non-residential applications. All right, now looking at the residential requirements. The scope of the residential requirements first, the scope includes all indoor and outdoor lighting attached to single-family buildings within dwellings and in multifamily buildings. And it includes also residential spaces in non-residential buildings. It includes all these types of dwellings shown here. So the important thing to note here is that although it says residential requirements, the residential requirements are applicable to many other spaces that may not be considered residential by some. Dormitories, hotel and motel guest rooms, fire station dwellings, sheds and garages on residential sites. All of these are considered residential and must meet the residential requirements. Okay, Title 24 covers all permanently installed lighting, and the permanently installed lighting must be all high efficacy. Permanently installed lighting per Title 24 definitions, though, includes some things that you may not consider permanently installed lighting. Permanently installed lighting includes everything shown here. If it's attached to a wall, if it's attached to the side of a cabinet, inside a permanently installed cabinet, inside of a ceiling fan, inside of exhaust fans, integral to garage door openers, part of track lighting and flexible lighting systems. These are all considered permanently installed lighting in the residential requirements. It's important to note that permanently installed luminaires may actually be a portable luminaire. If the portable luminaire is attached or mounted as described above, it's going to be subject to these Title 24 regulations. So consider maybe a hotel room that has a cord and plug attached to it, and it's attached to the wall. That's going to be considered permanently installed luminaire. One way to think about it is if it's in there when the inspector comes through, then it's probably going to be subject to the regulations. Okay, here is the definition of what California considers high efficacy. The products that are shown here on the left side of this table do not need any other certifications. These are automatically considered high efficacy. The inspectors are trained to look for these 7 types of products, and if it's one of these, then it's automatically considered high efficacy. It doesn't need to meet anything else. Now, what are those types? These products are pin-based linear fluorescent, or CFL, fixtures with these pin-based linear fluorescent CFL sources, fixtures with pulsar metal halide with high-pressure sodium, JA8 socketed products with as long as they have light sources other than LEDs, luminaires with induction lamps, inseparable solid-state luminaires that are installed outdoors, inseparable solid-state luminaires that have colored light sources designed to provide decorative lighting. These are all automatically high efficacy, no other certification required. Conversely, on the other side, all of these products must have JA8 certified, state certified light sources. They must be included, they must have a JA8 certified light source in them at the time the inspector comes through. So to reiterate, that's all light sources in ceiling recessed downlights, JA8 socketed products that contain LED light sources, screw-based luminaires, inseparable solid-state installed indoors, and any other product not shown on this table. So if it's not one of the products shown on the left side, then the right side would have to apply, and that means it needs JA8. Looking a little bit more at the residential requirements, permanently installed luminaires, again, must all be high efficacy. These high efficacy products must contain these high efficacy luminaires that have sockets in them must include a JA8 compliant light source, again, when the inspector comes around. E26 sockets are now okay. It used to be GU24 sockets were required for California. When this changed, the E26 sockets became okay. And so now you are able to use screw-based sockets in any of the products, but you do have to have a JA8 light source in that product. The JA8 light sources also need to be marked as JA8-2016 or include a -E if it's elevated temperature tested, and those elevated temperature tested sources are required in all enclosed luminaires and recessed luminaires. Permanently installed night lights can consume no more than 5 watts. Recessed downlights and enclosed luminaires are required to contain an elevated temperature tested JA8 light source. Downlights cannot contain a screw-based socket. They must all be insulated and airtight rated, insulated contact and airtight rated. They shall not contain any lamps that are labeled not for use or recessed. Looking at the outdoor residential requirements, the outdoor lighting on single-family residential buildings must be high efficacy. Again, all the products must be high efficacy for residential. The outdoor luminaires that are inseparable solid-state lighting luminaires, that's where the light engines are integrated into the luminaires. It's automatically a high efficacy luminaire. So the product that's a solid-state and inseparable, you don't have to meet any JA8 requirements. All outdoor lighting must still contain photocells, motion sensors, or time switches, or something that shuts it off. Lighting that's not attached to the building on a single-family site is not regulated by the state. So as far as landscape lighting is concerned, those products are not regulated, so they're you still can do whatever you want on those. Okay, what is JA8? You probably hear this quite a bit. I've said it a few times. So what does that really mean? The JA8 refers to an accompanying document that accompanies the main part of the energy efficiency standards. It's called the reference appendices, which explains a lot of the details of the actual standards. In this reference appendices, there's residential appendices, and then there's a non-residential, and then there's the joint appendices. Joint appendices have certain numbers, JA1 through 10, and in JA8, joint appendix number 8, that's when they spell out all of the requirements for high-efficacy light sources, and that's where that number comes from. So just wanted you to know what JA8 means and where that comes from. What are the JA8 requirements? These are not all the requirements. These are some of the main requirements. The efficacy needs to be at least 45 lumens per watt. Power factor of 0.9. The color rendering has to be at least 90 CRI in this case, with the R9 value greater than or equal to 50. Now, here's that R value again. In this case, the number R9 represents red, and red has to be the red content in that LED product has to be at least 50. The CCT can only can't be any higher than 4,000 K for engines. So that was for the inseparable luminaire type of products, and for lamps you can only go up to 3,000 K. Products all have to be dimmable. Not only dimmable, they have to be dimmable down to 10%. Additionally, they have to have a flicker rate less than 30% for certain frequencies, and that's tested also with dimmability. The lifetime has to be at least 15,000 hours. And they have to be elevated temperature tested in some cases and labeled as such. A couple of important notes and frequently asked questions about Title 24. The certified light engines comes up quite a bit. Now, this is one that gets confused quite a bit, so I'll try to explain this as simply as I can. But the JA8 certified light engines, there is a list of JA8 certified light engines just like there are lamps. But the light engines that are removable are treated exactly like lamps. And so if you have a JA8 certified light engines into any luminaire and you're using it to where it can be removed without damaging the product, the luminaire itself does not need to meet JA8 certifications. It does not need to be JA8 certified. That product, that JA8 certified light engine, has been tested for 6,000 hours, and it's been tested very much like a lamp has been, and the state treats it the same way. And so if it's removable, the JA8 engine operates just like your lamp in that luminaire. If the engine is not removable and it requires destruction or damage to the luminaire, then that luminaire is deemed an inseparable solid-state lighting luminaire, and it must be certified itself. Inseparable solid-state lighting luminaires are not required to have JA8 certified engines because the entire luminaire is actually tested and certified in that case. One of the things that is a little bit different if you do an inseparable solid-state lighting luminaire, you don't have to go through the 6,000 hours of life test, because since that engine is integral to that product, you can actually use the LM80 data for the chip and don't have to go through the 6,000 hours of life test. So it's one thing to be aware of. MaxLite does offer various JA8 certified light engines that can be used, again, just like lamps, as long as they're installed in the luminaire such that they're removable. So there's a link there, and they're on our website today. Another question that comes up a lot is about ceiling fan light kits and ventilation fans, vent fans in bathrooms and ceiling fan light kits. Light kits and ceiling fans are treated exactly like luminaires, and so as far as the standards are concerned for Title 24, they're going to have to meet the same high efficacy requirements that everything else I talked about has to meet. So it has to include many times the JA8 certified light source. Okay, the question comes up quite a bit about JA8 lamps versus Title 20 lamps. As a manufacturer of products of light sources, we have to comply to both. So we have products that are covered by Title 20 that we have to, of course, get certified for Title 20 if we want to sell in California, but if we want to use them in new construction, we also have to have JA8 compliant sources, but they have to be certified in both. And you can see there are some differences. One of the main differences is dimmability is required for JA8. It's not required for Title 20. CRI is higher for JA8 versus Title 20. The lifetimes are higher. So there's a number of things that are more stringent within JA8 versus Title 20, but a lot of times the same products are being used, but note that those products have to be registered for both conditions. There are products that can be Title 20 and not JA8 and vice versa. How to find California compliant products? Well, you can find any of these products on the what's called the Modernized Appliance Efficiency Database. That is essentially the same as the CEC database I've talked about. There's a public search feature where you can search for JA8 luminaires, JA8 lamps, Title 20 products. Are all covered in this same database. So you can search all those products and see the specifications for those products on the California Energy Commission database, this MAEDBS database, and it's on the California Energy Commission website. MaxLite has introduced a new product finder to where you can actually find our Title 20, JA8, and also other types of certified products. This is the website link. It's new. We've added this to our main page under rebates and compliance. And you can find it under Title 20-JA8 Product Finder. If you click on that, you can actually go to a selector list where you can sort by product type and go and find what certifications that product meets, whether it's JA8 or Title 20 or both, or you want to have a product that meets Energy Star JA8 and Title 20. You can search those and you can find those products. These, as you can imagine, the product list is very fluid, and I've sent out lists before to some of you, but since it changes so frequently, we found a way to put this online to where you can search at any time to find what's our latest compliant products. Of course, you can search the California database as well. The MaxLite search feature is really easy, and you can search also DLC and other types of certified products on this new area of our website. So there are some resources for additional info I have here. This FAQs on state-regulated lamps is very good. If you have any questions with regards to the Title 20 or Title 24, these are the direct email links to someone at the Energy Commission. They're really good about responding to questions. I am not associated with the Commission, so I don't have the final say on any of this. I'm just trying to give you the best as I have understood the standards to date. But there's a lot of information here, and I've tried to boil it down the best I can. Hopefully this helps you out quite a bit. And at this point, I can take some questions, and I'll have a couple here I'll try to address. If you have any detailed questions, let's talk about it offline, but I'll stay here for a second and answer some in the chat. Okay, one question or comment came up that the CEC said that the retrofit trim includes a medium base adapter. It must meet Title 20. That's true if a recessed downlight trim has a medium base attached to it with one of those bases I talked about, E12, E17, E26, GU24. They treat it like a lamp. And as far as whether it's included in the box or whether it's attached to the product, that's kind of a gray area. But if you have it with that product and it's able to be attached and used as a portable or as a screw-based type of a product, it's treated as a lamp and must meet the lamp specifications. Colored light sources putting out white light. That's essentially what I talked about earlier. If a color tunable or colored white source is able to produce white light in the spectrum that's defined as between the white light spectrum defined earlier in the presentation, it's between 2200K and 7000K and a certain DUV. If it is in that white light spectrum that the state defines as white light, it must meet the requirements in that individual mode. All other modes of operation it doesn't, but in the white light mode it must meet the requirements. There's a question about the Title 20 versus Title 24 importable lamps as a requirement. I have to go back to that. It should have said portable luminaires, but Title 20 covers portable luminaires, and there are various requirements for portable luminaires under Title 20. Title 24 only covers permanently attached. But however, I did say permanently attached luminaires could be portable luminaires if the portable luminaire is permanently attached. So the state of California considers any portable luminaire that's attached to the wall or attached to the inside of a cabinet, they consider those portable luminaires to be permanently installed luminaire in that case, and as such is subject to the permanently installed specifications. Our GU24 socket bulbs JA8 compliant. Any product can be JA8 compliant if it's covered under scope, and the JA8 compliance really you just have to meet all those specs in JA8. But there's no specific socket restriction on it. Certainly, GU24 socket lamps are can be JA8 compliant. MaxLite offers some GU24 socketed lamps that are JA8 compliant. But yes, you can have JA8 socketed. You can't have GU24 socket lamps JA8 compliant. Okay, the question is about a hardwired fixture, permanently attached fixture with a removable light engine meeting Title 24. So that goes back to, let me see if I can go back with the slides here. Here. If the hardwire fixture has a removable light engine, again, removable means you don't have to damage the luminaire to remove that engine. The engine itself is just like a lamp. That engine meets JA8 requirements, then that luminaire is high efficacy. High efficacy is defined by having a luminaire with a JA8 light source. So, yes, the installation meets high efficacy because you have a JA8 removable light source in that engine, in that fixture. What other states are implementing California Title 24 or any of these other things? There's no other states that I know of at this point that are doing the same thing that California is doing. There are certain entities such as big box retailers like Lowe's and others that are taking individual requirements. For instance, Lowe's requires the same flicker requirements that California has, and Energy Star are picking up certain things. So there's certain elements of what California is doing that are being picked up by certain entities, but I don't know of any states that are taking a whole hard, taking the full regulations of either one of these programs and putting that into their state requirements. Not to say that that won't happen, but at this point I don't know of that happening. CFL GU24s. Now, CFL GU24s was covered under the automatically high efficacy. So for Title 24, any product that has a GU24 base and CFLs, that's an automatically high efficacy product. You don't need to meet JA8 requirements. They've kind of been grandfathered in, as you would say, but it is kind of hard to find CFLs these days, especially with GU24s, and so I guess the state figured those won't be around too much longer. Okay, three-way lamps and Title 20. So three-way lamps, actually, I know three-way incandescent lamps are exempted from the general service requirements of general service lamps. Now, three-way LEDs, I have to look at that again. I have to think about that one for a second. Let me get back to you on that one. Fixture attached to a headboard, that actually has come up with the question with the commission, and there is a little bit of a nuance to that. I'll talk with you offline about the fixtures attached to a headboard, but that's it could be permanently attached, but I'll talk to you about that one offline. G9 halogen, and that wasn't included in the scope. So I explained what's the scope of the general service lamps, and the G9s were not considered in the scope of those types of products, so it would not be covered. Let me clarify about the G9 halogen to show you the slide here. a lot of questions about the luminaires attached to a headboard. Okay, so these are the general service lamp regulations. General service lamps, this is where your incandescents are caught. General service lamps only includes medium base products, so only medium base are covered under the general service lamp regulations. Now, this is the only place where halogens are really caught, because the only other two categories of products are state-regulated LED lamps and small diameter directional lamps. So the only category that could be regulated for halogen would be the general service lamps. And general service lamps only cover medium screw-based products, and so G9 halogens are not covered on scope. Okay, I appreciate everybody's attention and joining us here on this webinar. If you have any more questions, my email address is, I'll go back to the last slide, is there, cprimus@maxlite.com, or your question or have a more detailed question I need to get back with you on, I'll send that answer to you as soon as I can. And let me know if you need anything else, and I appreciate it, and I'll end the call at this time, and I'll stay on the chat window for a little bit longer. Thank you, guys.